Welcome to my podcast, The Laura Dowling Experience. Many of you will know me from my Instagram page at Fabulous Pharmacist, where I love to shine a light on topics that people normally shy away from. Today I spoke with Claire Fullam. Claire is an alcoholic, she's a mother, she's a wife, she's a trichologist, and she runs her own business. We had an amazing conversation about her journey with alcoholism. It was really enlightening. It may make some people question their own relationship with alcohol, but it was inspiring because it makes you see that there is always light at the end of the tunnel if you grab life with both hands. We spoke about how losing her hair completely kickstarted her into starting her own business and becoming a trichologist. And Claire is just such an amazing, she is an inspiring, a funny and clever lady. I know so many of you will get so much from this podcast. To support the Laura Dowling Experience, please check out my sponsors in the podcast notes below. Enjoy the show. Claire, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you.
Claire Balding, but it's actually Claire Fullam, but we'll get on to why she's Claire Balding later on. But Claire, I was so keen to get you on, and I was so happy that you agreed to come on because you are an alcoholic and you are a young woman and you have children and a partner. And I think that there's a lot of stigma attached to alcoholism. And I love the fact that we can talk about it in an open and honest way and maybe help other people. So can you tell me a little bit about how your alcoholism, came about and affected your life?
Yeah. So I will be sober, please God, 2 years on the 17th of March, so St. Patrick's Day. So what a day to quit.
Oh, goodness me.
What a day to quit. But yeah, so it will be 2 years now, this St. Patrick's Day. So I'm still very new to this, to be honest. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know 2 years seems like, it definitely 2 years ago, it seems like a feat, like to ever get to this point. But I just made the decision, I suppose, that it was getting out of control. Do you know, I think I always talk about this kind of grey line where I think a lot of us sit. You know, I was always a big drinker. I love to drink. That's why I'm in this position. Love to drink. Always the party gal. You know, I had my children young. So when I was let loose or given a day off or a night off, I took advantage of it. Always drank a little bit too much. And that was never apparent until I had children, really, to be honest. Like, the daily stresses of being a mother is hard work, working full time, all that kind of stuff. So I suppose I kind of started to drink more regularly, so I was 23 when I had Farah, okay? So I was quite young when I had her, but I suppose kind of every weekend then I drank, which is kind of socially acceptable every weekend. And that went on for years. Every weekend, myself and Ian would sit down, have a couple of drinks on a Friday and Saturday night. But then after my hair fell out, another story, after my hair fell out, I suppose I started to really reward myself with alcohol. It was really difficult for me to get through a day, wearing my wig, being on social media. It got a little bit too much.
Were you on social media at the time that your hair fell out?
Yeah, so that's the reason why I went on.
Okay.
So my hair fell out in 2016 and May, June 2016, and I created Claire Balding, right? Because my friend was like, that'd be gas if you called yourself that, So I was like, lean into it. I'm very self-deprecating, right? Okay. So I was like, right, Claire Balding was born. I went on, I literally put it up on Facebook to my 400 mates, and just said, I've lost my hair. Does anyone have any help? Like, what will I do? And the Independent picked it up. They wrote an article on it. And then all of a sudden I was on every radio show, every TV show that would have me trying to figure this out. So Claire Balding was born then. So I started on Snapchat. A lot of big influencers shouted me out and really, really quickly started to grow this audience, like basically overnight, I suppose. And initially, of course, it was all about my hair. I was bald on screen for everyone to see. And like back then, social media, like 7 years ago, was just OOTDs. It was just makeup. It was just this perfected life, and here I was, drinking cans with a bald head. Like, it was weird. It was different, right?
Yeah. And were you drinking cans online as well? Like,
yeah,
were you really,
like, not like, not in it, just I'd be having a drink with Ian singing Disney songs, like it was never, too bad or, I don't want anyone to think that, but definitely it was just a bit of fun, I suppose, but just then very quickly, I suppose my hair started to grow back, thank God, right? So it was alopecia areata, grew back really fast. That was a journey as well. When your hair's grown back, it was almost easier when there was nothing there, because when your hair grows back, it's a strange, place to be in. And yeah, Claire Balding just then became sharing parts of my life, sharing too much of my life, being online, all that kind of stuff. So my drinking got out a little bit. I upped it then. So it would be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So it would start to creep into another day, you know, and then
the weekend starts actually midweek.
Yeah, do you know? And again, I think that's most people's actual relationship with alcohol, do you know, like regardless, it doesn't really matter how much you're drinking. If you're drinking quite regularly, you know, it can become out of control a little bit. So I always say there's this grey line and people dance around that line all the time. You don't know how close you are to that line. That's the thing. And you don't realize when it's going to go too far. But I think in 2020, it went too far and I could not physically get through a day without alcohol, you know. And then I knew that this isn't my friend anymore. This is going to kill me. It's going to ravage my house. It's going to ravage my family if I don't stop. So I stopped then, you know, it took me a long time to stop because...
Did you keep stopping and then fall back off the wagon? Or like,
Not really. Like I kind of tried to control it for a long time. So a lot of people do this, right? So like dry January at the moment or whatever, or sober October, and there's loads of sober movements around. And I think, or, you know, 1 year off the beer, all this kind of stuff. So, you know, I think people's perception of an alcoholic is they drink all day, every day. It's not true, you know.
That's an interesting point actually, because you're right. So I
did, you know, 3 months off alcohol just to prove it to myself I could. But then it would almost be like I'd feck it all up then afterwards because I'd go hell for leather then for another 3 months after that, you know. So, you know, I always did these kind of periods, I suppose, of no drink, you know. But then it took me then a real kind of year to be like, right, Claire, you're going to die if you don't sort this out, you know.
How much were you drinking?
Do you know what? I won't answer that, not because people use it as a measure and people use it as an excuse to not stop, right? Okay. So I used to be obsessed with that question because I was trying to figure out, have I gone over that line yet? Am I an alcoholic yet? Because I knew it was coming, right? So I used to be obsessed. I'd hear stories like, did you hear Fidelma had to go into a centre? Or did you hear that, you know, Michael's given up alcohol? And I'd be like, how much was he drinking? How much was he drinking? When was he drinking? Because I thought that, you know, there was this measure and this number, you know, and I thought that it's fine if I don't get over that, you know, I'm not there yet. So that's why I never tell people, not that I'm ashamed, you know, but, you know, I think it probably could be helpful for some people, you know, but I think that, you know, it doesn't matter if you are drinking 2 bottles of wine a night or a litre of vodka a day or whatever that is, or 2 glasses of wine a night. If it's negatively affecting your life in any way, you have to readjust your relationship with alcohol, in my opinion, you know, and doing that can change your life completely, you know.
That's a fair comment. And I never thought of that actually, because it's whatever your threshold is, because we all have like different thresholds. I know, like I get tipsy after a couple of glasses, and I'm definitely hungover if I have 4 glasses of wine, say, you know, whereas someone else could sink 2 bottles and not feel that way. But it doesn't necessarily mean that I have any less of a dependence on alcohol than they do. Yeah.
No.
Okay. Yeah. So that's interesting.
And I think as the years went on, like I would be described in the past as Claire's a great drinker. Okay. She could drink anyone under the table, you know. That's not good. Okay. Because your tolerance, if you're drinking a lot of alcohol or you're treating alcohol in a certain way, your tolerance does build. So you can drink more, you know, and those, you know, certain amount of bottles that I'd have, you know, kept increasing, you know, year on year, that I was never filling that void. Because that's what you're trying to do, yeah? Like if you're treating alcohol like a medicine or any drug, okay, like a medicine, and it's a requirement, a necessity for you just to carry out your daily tasks, you know, it's a really difficult one then, because you're constantly trying to fill this void. You don't know what it is. And I was constantly searching for the period where I'd find peace, or the time where I'd find, oh, that's it now. Like I was always searching for that, but it's like a bottomless pit. Like it's like a sink. You can't fill it. You're not going to fill it with alcohol.
And do you have any idea, or have you done any soul searching on why you did have that relationship with alcohol in the first instance? Like the self-medication you've discussed. So was there mental health issues there, anxiety? Was there something that you were like trying to calm down in and of yourself? Because that's usually how that's usually what people are doing. It's kind of it's like a self-medication, and alcohol is the easiest drug to self-medicate with because it's legal, and you don't require a prescription for it.
Yeah, I think that it was a mixture of things. I think that I never really dealt with my hair loss. The way I dealt with my hair loss was going online and openly speaking about it, which really helped me, by the way. Really, really helped me. And when Claire Balding was born, it brought me so much, other things in my life that I'd never have experienced without my hair loss, So I really, value what Claire Balding has brought. I speak about it like this is a third party. Like it's
okay.
just, it's my alter ego, and people meet me in real life go, God, Claire, you're really nice. I didn't expect you. I'm like, oh my God, is Claire Balding really that much of a bitch? But like,
That's terrible.
But I'm cheeky. And she is my alter ego. To be honest, she's everything that I want to be. And I feel safe doing that behind my camera in my house, but I can't go into the world and scream and shout and curse at people. I wish I could, but I can't, right? So Claire Balding's this little alter ego, but I think the way I dealt with my hair loss was very open and very honest, which helped me and helped thousands of people watching as well. But I never really got to the root of that, why that happened. And that constantly played in my mind a lot, about, God, Claire, what aren't you managing? This seems like such a crazy reaction to have, to kind of lose all of your hair. Like, you just have 2 kids, you just have a normal job. How can you not handle this? Like, what is...
Because you linked your hair loss to stress or to like not your body malfunctioning as such.
Yeah. Because of the type of hair loss it was, a lot of people experience hair loss for different reasons, of course, but mine was alopecia areata. So the main cause for alopecia areata is stress related. And I beat myself up about that for years because I was like, God, how dare you be that stressed? Mary across the road has 7 kids and you've only 2, and your job isn't, the CEO of X, Y, and Z. So why can't you handle your life? I was so ashamed of that I was so embarrassed that I couldn't, it seems, handle my life, So that ate away at me for a number of years. And when you've got shame and guilt and all that building up constantly, and then also, the pressure of being online, you have thousands of people telling you what they think of you, and Claire, I don't think you should actually say that, and Claire, excuse me, Claire, and all of those opinions are suddenly coming at you, and you're like, oh my God, and that was hard. It was hard because I'm a natural people pleaser. I'd lie on the ground and let you walk all over me if I had to, So then to be, either criticized or loved, it's the fine line, and so many people are watching you and enjoying your content or aren't. It's difficult, so that really, really pushed me, I think, into realms of, Jesus, I don't know, I had to just constantly keep trying to numb myself because it was too hard to fathom what I'd done to myself, because I was the one opening my phone. I was the one controlling this. So I was trying to numb all those feelings that I had.
Were you getting, so with the Instagram, were you getting jobs out of that? Or was it just something that you did for yourself?
So I've never worked on Instagram before. I've never worked with a brand, anything like that. And that was a conscious decision of mine that I was like, do you know what? I have my full-time job. Could I have made a lot of money? Yeah, I could have, and I turned down things, particularly in the hair loss world, which is interesting. Vitamins and, shampoos and all that kind of stuff. Companies would come to me and ask me, but I always said no, it was hard because we were never, well-off family, normal, struggling away nicely family, but I never used my platform for that. My platform was always just a very authentic space to rant and rave and to have a bit of fun. It was never a money-making tool. Now, we did 17 live shows. So that generated revenue, of course, right? So we did 17 live shows up and down the country. It was a very Balding Made Me Do It was the name of the show. We did it all over the country, like to thousands of women and men. And it was a really uplifting show, all about trying to be yourself and making the most of the shit bits that life throws at you. So that was really fun. And I did an RTE show then, Yellow Brick Road. So loads of stuff came from Claire Balding, but I never held something up and said, swipe up. I never went down that road, And I'm glad of that because, there's a lot of mistrust in that world sometimes, and I've seen it firsthand, and a lot of my friends are in that world as well. So I'm not giving out, but, now my business, it's really important to me that people trust me because I spend so much money and so much time buying stuff from people because of my hair. It's a very vulnerable situation to be in. So now with Trua, it's really paring that back. And I think the only reason why Trua is standing today is because of all of the stuff I didn't do, leading up to the point of having my own business. Does that make sense?
100%.
That people have a trust and honesty and integrity as well. It's huge to me,
So, and I know that you said, I know that you said about it was the hair loss that tipped you over into alcoholism as such. But you'd said that you were always a heavy drinker.
Yeah.
And was that a self-medicating, or was that just you're a party animal, you just love the booze and that was it? Or do you think that there was something back, I'm trying to ask you, was there something back then that made you the party girl? Or was that was just the way it was?
Do you know what? I think that from having kids young, right, I missed out on a lot of stuff. Like all my friends are in college. Like I never went to college back then. So all my friends are in college. They were all going to coppers and I was sitting at home like with a teething 2-year-old, right? So I was obviously fuming, like, that kind of way. So I'd say that there was an element of, that. But also like, not to throw anyone under the bus, but my family were always big drinkers, like any celebration that was there. So you learn behaviors from people, right? That you kind of, if my mom's having a dinner party with all her friends, Jesus Christ, make sure there's 20 bottles of wine in the house, So I grew up looking at that, and it's really interesting the more I dive into kind of alcoholism in terms of reading about it and reading and hearing other people's stories, that I don't believe it's a disease, to be honest. And that's controversial, right? But I don't believe it's a disease. I don't believe it's hereditary. I think it's circumstantial. And it's a really normal, natural human reaction to ease pain, and I think that when I see, something being done the same way as I wish my mom and dad cycled, but they didn't. They drank, right? Okay. So it's whatever you learn and you grow up within a home. And that's why now I'm so glad that at 35 with 2 children, 12 and 8, that they won't, please God, see me with an alcoholic drink in my hand. Because the people that I know now who have parents that don't drink have a much better relationship with alcohol. They're not using it in the way that most of us use it, So I don't think there was something back then. I think I was trying to escape from motherhood. Sometimes I wanted to be with my friends and have the nights out and get dolled up and all that kind of stuff. And then I'd always go a little bit too far because that's my personality. So I'd always be the one, Jesus, did you see me last night falling? And I'd always have that, fun element to it. It was never dark, but then all of the compounding stress that life is. It doesn't need to be these astronomical things that happen to you in your life. It's day to day. We're all fucking wrecked, right? Yeah. And it's just that tiny endorphin kick. And it doesn't even need to be the alcohol touching my lips. It's the glug of the wine or the glug of the beer going down that glass or the crack of the can. Then all of a sudden I'm brought to a place where...
Isn't that mental? Because they say that about... when you're learning about addiction in college or you're learning about it, post that, I've done lots of addiction studies, particularly with illicit drugs abuse. So, I would know about alcohol, but I'm very into, heroin and methadone treatment for heroin and that, obviously because of my profession. Mm-hmm. But it's we always learned, like with someone that uses heroin, it isn't even just the shooting up. It's the tourniquet, wrapping that around your arm. Mm-hmm. It's the setting up the works. Yeah. It's the flicking the lighter. It's the heating. All the
mechanics.
That little ritual is that's what actually gets the dopamine going and everything like that. So when you're saying the crack of the can, the glug of the wine, and I can even hear the glug of the wine when you're saying it.
Dying for one. Like it's all of that. It's planning, it's 4:00 at work and you're like, gee, it's Friday, and you're like, or Thursday or Wednesday or Tuesday. And it's like, God, I can't, in 2 hours now, I'll be home now, and I'll go home and I'll empty the wash first. And then after I empty the wash now, I'll get the kids sorted, their dinner's done. Once that's done, then I can open the wine or I can open the beer. It's all about that planning, that process of when am I going to feel relaxed now? And you start to relax already before you have drunk anything, So it's not that, and most people think like that. Most people have that relationship with alcohol. And the more alcohol you add into that, the closer you're getting up to that fine line, that you have to be really careful. And that fine line, is addiction. Mm-hmm. Once you go past it, you can't come back from that. That is then an animal inside you that is bigger than, the ocean. It's the biggest thing that will control your life and ultimately kill you, you know, so you have to be very, very careful. And I think that it's so weird. And even in your profession, Laura, like alcohol's the only drug that you have to explain why you're not taking it, you know?
I know. And it's almost, and you know, I have friends, a couple of male friends, and they don't drink. And they said when they meet people on a date, so say they've met someone on Tinder, or, you know, I don't know, there's another one. What's the one where the girl asks first?
Oh, Bumble?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they meet, and the girl looks at them like as if they have two heads, because they say, oh no, I don't drink. And they almost think either they're an alcoholic, which they may or may not be, but they look at them like as if there's something wrong with them. Or, you know, the way you always have to give an excuse if you're not drinking, oh no, I'm pregnant, or
antibiotics.
Or I'm on an antibiotic.
Yeah.
You know, and there shouldn't have to be that. Like I've spoken to Marion Keys before, who's spoken out about her alcoholism, and she just says, I'm an alcoholic. I'm not. Like,
so do I know. Yeah.
I'm an alcoholic. I can't drink. Just piss off, like, you know.
I've had to do that because, you know, in the early days of trying to be sober, there's so many temptations everywhere, and you can really tip someone over the edge, you know. So that type of questioning can be dangerous, I think, you know. And I kind of gave up on St. Patrick's Day. I said, I'm giving up, trying to lose a bit of weight, giving up, shut up now. But it's 2021, right? So we didn't really see many people. So it's kind of easier in some ways because I drank a lot at home. So I was at home a lot. So it was kind of a few triggers there all the time for me. There's this witching hour every day around 6 or 7 o'clock. Not anymore.
Okay.
I used to though. It was really hard. Like, you know, particularly the first year. And every day that I got through without drinking alcohol, I celebrated. Thank Jesus. It's one more day. And once I got over the year, it didn't really matter. You know, it could have been, you know, 465 days. But when I got over that, I was like, okay, Claire, now it's time to start trying to get better. Okay. So try and get a hold of this. But like, you know, I had to make excuses all the time for why I wasn't drinking, you know. And then I got to July. So March to July, I was going on holidays for a week down in Wexford with my friends. And I said, I'll have a drink with them. I'll have a drink with them when I get there. Knowing damn well that I'd try my best never to have a drink again in my whole life, you know. But I had to say that for everybody else, not for me, but for everybody else. And then I remember I got through the holiday, and I told Ciara and Phil, I'm an alcoholic. I can't drink again. They were like, no, you're not. And I'm like, oh, no. I'm like, so I told them little tidbits, and they're like, oh, Jesus, Claire, like, don't drink. And they're not big drinkers, actually. Yeah. That helped too, okay? Then after that, for a couple of months, I got brave enough to tell my mum and dad, you know, that I'm attending meetings. I've stopped. If you ever see me with a drink in my hand, don't celebrate. We're going to come where it's going to be serious. I'm like, this is serious. And, you know, I think that knocked them a little bit. Really proud of me, of course, you know, but, you know, that knocked them a little bit because it's almost a defeatist attitude to alcoholism. It's like the end of the road. But fucking hell, it's just the beginning. I've realised that now, you know, 2 years in almost.
Do you grieve the feeling though, that buzzy feeling that you get when you're not back?
Something? I get it every day.
Okay.
Now, like, it's funny when you take that out of your life, you know, and it's out of your life long enough to start to see the benefits. Like my liver was hanging out my arse, Laura. Like the doctor told me, Claire, what are you doing? Like, what's the look at your liver or whatever? My blood test. What are you doing? Are you drinking too much? No. This went on for years. Okay. And it was like, well, then you're obviously eating too much sugar. Like, what are you doing? And I was piling on the weight, like, because I was drinking so much or whatever. And, you know, lying to them, you know, eventually then kind of had to tell them. But you get so much joy out of all the unexpected things in life. Like the clarity I feel. I'm 20 years younger in my mind, you know, I can achieve I have so much more money, like the amount of fucking money it costs, right? So all of the rest of your life elevates. Live music sounds better. I love going to gigs again. I could not enjoy anything because I was constantly thinking about, well, where's the bar? Okay, where's my card? Will I get this next drink? Like I was fucking obsessed because it's like you just have to keep filling that hole, you know, you have to keep filling the hole. So now I go to a gig and I listen to the music, I dance, I have fun, you know, I go out for a meal and I enjoy the fucking meal. I'd always be racing through my food so I could drink again, or when's we gone to the bar, you know? So now everything's slower. My life is slower. I enjoy spending time with my kids. I'm not as cranky. I'm not as impatient. I'm present with them.
How did it affect your relationship with your partner and your kids? How did it take over itself and make you not be the best well, I'm sure like it did, you weren't the best person you could be, but how did it affect your day-to-day life when it came to your partner and kids?
Ian, my husband, he was drinking quite a lot. Like he would drink nearly as much as I would together. And then I was supplementing myself sometimes elsewhere. So meaning it was a big part of our relationship was alcohol. So when I stopped, it took us a while, still a work in progress, to understand, God, how do we spend time with each other now? Like that's a big deal, because we sat on the couch and we listened to music and we do sing-alongs, and, we haven't done that in a while because I'm not drunk, So
yeah, and also I suppose the conversation's different when you have a few drinks, like you're laughing more and it's more kind of fun and playful. Where
So it's been, hard to kind of adjust to that a little bit. I think in terms of my kids, oh my God, they've much better mammy now, that I'm more present. Like it never got dramatic in our house. Like I always say that as well. The kids were always on time for school. They always had their packed lunch. They always had a supportive mammy around, thank God. But now they've a mammy that isn't constantly going, like itching, like physically sore. I want them to go to bed. I need them to go to bed now because I need to drink. Like this is the time now. I need to have a drink. I'm like, you've withdrawals, So that's really hard. So I was impatient with them, like most of us are. I still am. But, everything's a little bit calmer. Everything's a little bit easier, because I'm not, Sophie White. I'm sure you know Sophie, right? Gorgeous Sophie. She's a podcaster, an author. Look her up if you don't know who she is. But she was on the Miriam O'Callaghan show. And I remember she spoke so eloquently about her alcoholism. Like I've never heard anything before. And 3 days after I heard that interview on Miriam O'Callaghan, I didn't drink again. And representation, I think, is so important. When you see someone, like I've been on Sophie's podcast, I speak to Sophie regularly, but I never knew this part of her life, And so she was on Miriam O'Callaghan. They were talking about one of her new books that she was bringing out, Corpsing. That book changed my life. And because I could see myself in Sophie. When I think of an alcoholic, now still, I think of God love the person on the streets, lost everything, nuisance to society, animalistic even. That's the kind of impression that I get of an alcoholic. What Sophie did for me was open up the conversation that an alcoholic has all shapes and forms, okay? And some people like that word and some people don't like that word. Some people will never use that word. It took me a long time to use that word.
Because even I asked you, do you identify as an alcoholic? Is it okay to use that? Or say, you have problem drinking? But I think that you're right about the representation, because like there's an awful lot of shame and embarrassment associated with, I think, being, an alcoholic, but being a female and alcoholic, and being a female with children and being an alcoholic, because it's almost like, oh, can she look after her kids? Or there's always that. But I think there's shame with being a woman anyway, but we won't go down that route. Won't go down that route today. But just, did you feel a sense of shame yourself?
Huge.
Like, okay. And when did that kind of shame lift? When could you like proudly say, yes, I'm an alcoholic, but I'm,
Probably a year ago, maybe. I was sober a year, I'd say. And I kind of started to use the word secretly to myself, or I'd say it to Ian. Like, but it took me a while to say those words because it is seeped in shame, And I think that, again, part of, AA is an incredible program that keeps millions of people sober every day and has changed people's lives. And the first thing you have to say in AA is, hi, I'm Claire, I'm an alcoholic, right? So if you can't say that, which a lot of people can't say, they stop themselves from getting help. They stop and they waste so much of their lives, their health, their families, their everything, but because they can't say that word. If we had a different relationship with that word, and kind of, if it's powerful to you, use it, because millions do. But there is this attitude of it being the bottom, you've really fucked things up now.
Yeah.
This is the end of it now, and almost a feeling of once you say it, you can't go back. So I've different opinions on that, like that. I don't think it's a disease. I don't think that it's, hereditary and stuff. And my granddad was an alcoholic, so what you expect, this kind of stuff. I don't believe that. I believe that it's a human reaction to something that you don't really know how to deal with. So you try and numb that and it gets out of control then for most people, But it's a really weird word. And at the moment, I could hate it in 2 years, but at the moment I'm kind of using it as armor. I'm kind of using it as, don't push me to have a drink because don't, you shouldn't be. And I'm going to make you a bit uncomfortable now for even asking that question, because it's throwing it back up at them. And a lot of people don't, like me probably using that word because I drank as much as them. And I'm holding a mirror up to them now. And I'm being like, I'd never say that, or I'd never, but it's just, it's a way of making people think, you know.
It is uncomfortable.
So uncomfortable.
And did you find AA helped you?
So I went to 12 meetings in AA in the first year. So I haven't been to one in a year really, right? So I went to 12 meetings. They were all online, unfortunately, because of COVID as well. Now,
so you actually gave up during COVID, which is, a feat in and of itself, because the rest of us were drinking more during COVID.
Yeah. Well, I gave up in 2021. So I had a great year in 2020 where I was numbed, right? Yeah. And then it was 2021 then when I gave up. But to be honest with you, the online meetings, they were a blessing as well, because I still haven't managed to drag myself into a building and sit there in front of people. That gives me the shivers even thinking about that. I think it's a really difficult thing to do. Now, once you do it, I'd say, like everything, it will get easier. So the online meetings were good in some ways, but I'd be hiding and using different names and all. I'd be terrified that somebody would see me that knew me, or, and I've got this little online presence, it's hardly fucking Michelle Obama sitting there. But at the same time, oh God, what if someone sees me? So then I started to go to American meetings then, so then nobody would know me. And AA was amazing, but it's really, really difficult to listen to those stories. Life-changing to listen to those stories, and really, really important to listen to those stories. And most people that go to AA, they've been sober 10, 20, 30 years, they say, I don't go to AA for my drinking, I go for my thinking. And so true. You learn so much as a human in terms of empathy, compassion, everything else in between, So they have such an amazing structure there and help and change millions of lives.
And what is the structure? You go into a meeting and what happens?
You'd have kind of a lead or whatever, someone that, I don't know if the leader is the wrong word, can't remember now. But yeah, I suppose the president of the meeting or whatever. Right. And they'd go through, and a lot of them would say a prayer at the start as well, which I kind of had issues with too. And they said, anyone want to share today? And then you'd put up your hand, on Zoom or whatever, and then you'd unmute yourself and you'd say, today I'm 2 years and 5 months sober. Yesterday I found really difficult. And you go through your week or whatever, and then as kind of people start to share, they'd say, do you know what, Laura, what you said there a little while ago, that happened to me. And there's someone here with 20 years under their belt, that kind of way. So it's really enlightening, it is. And to see people be so vulnerable, I've never seen, I was bawling, absolutely distraught. My first meeting was on the 17th of March, while everyone else in the country was locked, right? And I was like, fucking hell, I cannot believe I'm here. I couldn't get over it because I still had that huge shame and embarrassment over it in general, But, then I kind of, I suppose, took what I could from it. I think I will go again. Right now, I've kind of given it a little bit of a miss, I suppose, but I think I'll need it one day. It's a long life ahead of me, please God, that kind of way, with loads of ups and downs, So I think there'll be a time where I will rely on it more, and I want to do it. I do want to do it, but there's something stopping me a little bit. I don't know what that is.
You know what it is?
So I think, and even I speak to friends of mine, that go and, even gay friends of mine, I'm like, how do you get over the God thing? The God thing really bothers me. How am I going to do that,
So it's something they say that there's some pledge to God, is there?
So it is a Christian organization, right? So it was built around that, and there's 12 steps and all that kind of stuff, and really someone described it to me as Claire, you don't need to believe in God, right? Because I'm a Catholic, but I'm not, right? Again, most of the country, right? You just have to believe that there's a higher purpose to life. You have to believe that you aren't bigger than the ocean, which please God you believe. So if that's the concept, it just means that something or someone, or by sharing your stories, you'll help somebody else. So you don't need to believe in Jesus Christ and all that kind of stuff. You just need to believe. So I'm trying to get around that a little bit. But also my problem is that there is levels of shame linked to it because it's anonymous, right? And that does something to me. That hurts me a little bit because I don't want to be anonymous. Here I am talking to you about it. That will go out to loads of people.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be anonymous, because if it's anonymous, then it's shameful and it's riddled with guilt and it's all those things, you know, that it shouldn't be. Because if we don't talk about it, it will fester. Like I said the other day, everyone in Ireland and all over the world, but obviously we live here, everyone in Ireland knows that something's bubbling here with alcohol, but no one dares to look, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. The damage it does to families, to our health, to our mental health, it's absolutely unfathomable.
Do you think it should be illegal like other drugs, or like not?
No. Like, I'm not here, like, I know, and I'm coming across like that kind of preach about alcohol.
No, not at all. I just find it, like, I mean, you do wonder though. So, because we talk about drug abuse a lot, and about, you know, drug abusers and people being dependent on all kinds of drugs. And we don't list alcohol in that same box, but alcohol causes more damage than other drugs combined.
Much more. And it's the catalyst to a lot of other drugs as well, you know, because people on the night out will do a couple of lines of cocaine or pop a tablet or whatever that is, you know, because they've had a couple of drinks, you know. No, I don't think it should be illegal. I think that there should be, like the tobacco industry, and I think that will be. There's so many people now choosing to live a sober life, whether regardless of issues with alcohol or not. I think that, you know, the tobacco industry has come a long way in terms of they've held their hands up a little bit. You know, they've said, yeah, this is really bad for you. And I think one day we'll get there with alcohol, you know, maybe not in our lifetime, but definitely I think the younger generations will understand the detrimental effects it can have on your life, and to be very careful with it. That's the key. Be really careful with it. And it's us as parents to try and, you know, make sure that we're doing that for our kids. You know, you can only do that when you're not drunk, you know? Yeah. So I think that's a really important message, that I think in 20, 30, 40 years, whatever that is, alcohol will be thought of differently. And I think that the reason why it's not is because it's our culture. Yeah. So you take away,
so much lobbying behind it though too. There's so much money to be made from alcohol, but just like the tobacco industry, and I know you said that they've kind of put their hands up, but they were forced to do that. Like, you know, they were, you know, and they're not doing it in countries where they're not being forced to do that. So where money can be made. But I just, I find it interesting. I find, and also when you say about Ireland and our relationship with alcohol in Ireland, obviously, like, we're known as the drunk paddies or whatever, but I do always find it interesting if you go to France or Italy and you get a little glass of wine. You know, they drink wine at lunchtime. Yeah. But the wine they drink is a significantly smaller amount than we do. Like, we drink a fishbowl's worth, and they, you know, or, you know, we'll go out for dinner and you'd automatically just order a bottle of wine and share it maybe between two people, and maybe order another one. Whereas they could sip on one glass and a really small glass, like 125 mils, all night. Yeah. You know, so I think it's just that we don't really understand that sophisticated way of drinking here either.
Well, you're a pharmacist, right? So most people, not all people, but most people come into the pharmacy and they'll do exactly what you told them to do. So you'll say to Mary, don't be taking any more, Mary, 1 a day or 2 every 5 hours, whatever the pharmacist has told you to do. And most people will obey that. When you go to your GP and they're saying, Laura, if you're drinking any more than whatever it is, 14 units a week, that's dangerous. You're like, oh, shut up. You're like, well, you shut up. I can handle it.
Because you don't see it as a drug. You see it as something else. Yeah, so
it is a drug, you know? And I think that, you know, we behave ourselves, most of us do it in terms of, you know, that prescriptive drug, but you don't. And listen, this struck me the other day, right? Why? See, I can handle more than Mary can, you know? Even think of that. What are you searching for, you know? It doesn't matter that you can drink a bottle of wine and Mary has 1 glass and she's pissed, okay? But you're taking charge of that and saying, no, you're dismissing all of the medical advice, you're dismissing all that kind of stuff that you know better, that you need to get to a place which you're comfortable in. That's weird, if you think about it that way. What is it that we're searching for? What is it that we need that extra glass to get to? And because I can take it, I can handle it. It's a strange concept, really, isn't it?
It's that tipsy feeling, I think, that's so enjoyable. But then, like what you say, it's like that self-medicating as well. And as humans, we seek out pleasure, don't we? So be it through drugs, through sex, through food, through exercise. it's all those chemicals that we seek to be rushing through our blood.
Yeah.
But what I want to do now is get onto you and the part of your life where you did go bald. We've discussed it a little bit briefly, and luckily, and unusually, it came back fairly quickly, didn't it?
Yeah.
So it kind of fell out and then came back, did it? Or how long did it take to grow back?
Well, I kind of lost it in May 2016, so nearly 7 years ago. It fell out in 5 weeks. So 5 weeks I had no hair. So I had
getting chunks of hair falling out in the shower
everywhere. Yeah, absolutely
and
everywhere.
Loads of hair.
It was even better. It was even better before. So big, huge, like typical redhead, like loads of big kind of fluffy hair. I discovered a bald patch like right up here on my split, and I was like, what the hell is that? And I thought like I'd put my GHD too close to it or something, and it was a burn. And I went into work and I showed one of the women, like who was in her 50s, I think at the time, and Bernie was like, it's alopecia. I was like, oh, shut up, Bernie, whatever. Like, I went on my life, whatever. And then I just noticed, and again, people with a lot of hair will shed a lot of hair as well, of course, right? We all shed hair, about 100 hairs a day, but this was excessive to the point where I was picking it up in, around my desk at work. So I was kind of embarrassed and putting it in the bin and then emptying the bin myself. Like, I was kind of like, what the hell? So I went to the doctor and she found 5 more patches on my head, one the size of my fist at the back of my head. And I was like, what? And I said, okay, so what's the plan? How are we going to get this back? And she said, there's absolutely nothing you can do, Claire. And I was like, what? Sorry? Nothing you can do. I was like, there has to be, no, nothing I can do. So I left there going, oh my God, like what the hell is ahead of me? My hair was like...
Nothing. She didn't suggest anything. Did she diagnose it as alopecia, or did she just say...
It's a form of alopecia.
Okay.
There's nothing you can do. So I went... And my hair was like my biggest trait. I was like, Claire with red hair? Claire with red hair? So suddenly I had no hair. 5 weeks I was in a wig. And I'd say I attended a try... So I went to a dermatologist, went to a trichologist, went to loads of different ones.
Probably spending a fortune while you were doing that.
Had to buy a wig, which is like whatever, bloody $2,000 or whatever it was at the time. And that was like May, June time. And by September, October, I started to sprout new hairs again. So that was a process in itself, as I said, like growing the hair back, all that kind of stuff. So as quickly as it went, it came back, but it was one of the worst cases of alopecia areata they'd seen, They were very, especially the dermatologists were very, no, it's all going to go. My eyebrows went as well. So it's normally not a great sign, when your eyebrows and your eyelashes go too. But the trichologist was the most positive, I have to say. Like she said, it's going to grow back. It's going to get worse before it gets better, but it's going to grow back. And I was like, oh, she's just saying this because she wants me €150, whatever it was, right? And it did. So I attended a trichologist up, I still have even 2 inches of growth or whatever. I was still there. So I went there for 20 weeks, did all sorts of lotions and potions and treatments and all that kind of stuff. And
like what? So do they work? And what was it that you were putting on your scalp?
Loads of different things.
Okay.
So like the doctor, so I'm a trichologist now. Okay. So I went back then 3 years ago and studied. It's a constant level of education. You have to keep studying all that kind of stuff. But so I'm a trichologist. So my life has really changed since I lost my hair, of course, like complete different career that I have now, all that kind of stuff.
What did you do before?
I was working in a college for like 7 years. So working in like the admin section. So I look after the students, like a third level. They're all primary school teachers in training. Okay. I worked there for 7 years and really happy there. Loved it. And there while I was going through this really, really hard time, they were great. And then I just said, oh, feck this. Like something bubbling there. Claire balding, what's going on? And just said, what, I'm going to have to take the leap. Like terrifying to quit your normal 9-to-5 job that, with a young family and everything else. But I just knew that there was a bit more of a purpose to this, I suppose. So so what do they do? Loads of different things that people do, so there's loads of kind of laser therapy, light therapy that people use, and different trichologists have different ways of working as well. Like we're solely online, so I never see your scalp or touch your scalp. This technology is amazing that you can kind of do all of this stuff now remotely almost and guide someone not seeing them in person. COVID, I think, has taught us all that a little bit, that you don't have to have all these big overheads to have a clinic anymore. you know. But there's loads of physical, you know, treatments that they can give to you. Loads of natural remedies as well. There's loads of herbs out there and stuff in natural worlds that trichologists would use. But each of them have a little bit of a different principle, you know. They are not doctors, you know, so that we are not doctors. So it is
backlash from doctors though, or dermatologists, because obviously they can see someone and they can treat by prescribing or giving in steroid injections or, you know, whatever else that's needed. So do you ever feel that there's backlash? They're saying like, oh, look, why would someone go to you?
Hocus pocus. Yeah. No, do you know what? I remember the first time I told my doctor, I was down there talking about my alcoholism, and he was like, what do you do, Claire? Like, you run your own business, don't you?
Drinking, Claire. What do you do?
What do you do it yourself? So I was like, and I went, oh, you're going to hate this, but I'm a trichologist. And he was like, what are you talking about? I'm going to hate this. Like, people need you. And I was like, yeah, they do actually. So it depends. Like, I think the medical world, excuse me, Laura, sometimes they're because they have to be. If you're not going to get a result from this, don't do it. Okay. And it's very definite and it's very prescribed and it's very, this is the evidence here. This, you know, this is the treatment for this. And there's no other way around it, you know. And I've got loads of friends who are doctors. I'd be like, oh, for fuck's sake, Claire, this trichology lark, right? What a trichologist did for me was huge. And it did more for me than any other doctor, any dermatologist I saw, because all of them were quite negative, right? And if I had have just stopped there and said, you're going to wear a wig forever, Claire, you can try your Betinavate, you can try this, you can try cortisol injections, you can do all this stuff, I wouldn't have hair today. That's the truth of it, you know. So a trichologist, I think, again, depending on their practice and how they do it, I'm this buffer. I'm a person who, first of all, has first-hand experience of it, that's able to really talk to them on a level of, I know this is so shit. And because it's made such an impact and such an imprint on my life, I have a huge empathy and compassion for it, first of all. And I have time for that, you know. It depends on the type of hair loss, you know. Sometimes you can't do anything about that, and we have those conversations as well. And I'm very honest, and I'll tell them nothing's going to improve. Should you still look after your scalp the same way as you should look after your face or your skin on your face? Yeah. Hair or not, you know, you have to look after it. It has to be clean. It has to be hydrated. It has to be energized. That's the way you treat the scalp, the same way as you treat the skin on your face. So kind of those shampoos and that strip the hair. So I'm kind of thinking, you know, the things that you buy in the supermarket. Would you be against using them? Do people need to be using you know the way you're not supposed to be using soap when you're nether regions, right? Yeah. Because it can irritate. Is it the same for the scalp? Does everyone need to be looking after their scalp, or? No, I think that if you're into skincare, you should be into scalp care. There's no difference there, you know. I think that hair care is like makeup and scalp care is like skincare. Does that make sense? Yeah. So the Olaplex masks or the K18 or all those gorgeous brands that we sell, by the way, they're like makeup for your hair. They'll make your hair look nicer, perform better, you know, all that kind of stuff. But they're not physically changing your hair. They're cosmetically changing your hair. Okay. So I think that it depends on what the way the clinic or the salon or whoever's selling it to you. This is dead, right? So you're not going to make much physical change up here. The only time you can make change to your hair. Claire's actually touching her beautiful red locks for our listeners that aren't watching. Yeah. You know, the only way to make physical change to the hair is through the scalp, you know? So if you're into skincare, which most of people are in their 30s, 40s, 50s and beyond, it's absolutely important that you look after your scalp as well, you know? So there's loads of, you know, there is loads of hocus pocus out there, no doubt about it, you know, and doctors will also roll their eyes at different types of reflexology and different types of acupuncture and different types of medicine. Herbalists, they might roll their eyes at a little bit as well, you know. I think it's a place for everyone, because all it is looking after someone, you know, and if you've integrity there, and you're not going to rob someone blind, well, there's an absolute place for you at the table, you know? And I know a lot more about the scalp than a lot of my doctor friends out there, and the hair growth cycle and how to treat it and different types of hair loss, you know? So, I mean, I know like my friend Ollie was like, Claire, we never did the scalp. We did it like it was a little chapter in our little study book or whatever. It's really playing the doctor thing down. It's an incredible talent. But, you know, they're like, we never learnt about it. And they only prescribe minoxidil, you know, and I've seen reels of doctors, you know, this is great after COVID hair loss. And I nearly die because COVID hair loss is going to grow back, right? don't stick minoxidil on it because it's a drug and you'll become reliant on it in some way. And when you stop using your minoxidil, your hair could fall, you know? So we have to be really careful about the information that we give because people fucking panic when their hair falls out. And
have you seen a lot of COVID hair loss?
Huge amounts.
Have you seen a lot of COVID vaccine hair loss?
Yeah, mainly alopecia areata. So a stress related, like coin shape marks.
Yeah, because my hairdresser has said that she has seen lots of people like post-COVID vaccine get it, but like it makes sense. It's like saying if someone gets COVID, they'll experience some side effects. So if they get a vaccine that has it in it, they could experience similar type side effects, I suppose. So and you see it growing back eventually, or does it grow back thinner, or how does it work? Because I know there's a lot of it, isn't there?
I think it's different, like COVID hair loss, let's say. So when you get COVID around 3 to 6 months after, not everyone again, right? But a lot of people are experiencing a diffused hair loss. So diffused hair loss is like general hair loss all over the scalp. Okay. So there's not patches. It's not a receding hairline. It's just general kind of amount of shedding. Your ponytail's getting finer, all that kind of stuff. So generally we're seeing that will return to normal with little or no intervention. Okay. So you don't really have to do anything there. I think being proactive kind of gives you a level of control. So good shampoo, good little scalp tonic, some nice vitamins, you know, to make sure that you're doing something proactive. Because what can happen is if you're sitting there worrying about it, doing nothing, it gets worse. Okay. Then it starts to turn into more of a stress related hair loss. So being proactive is always a good idea, you know. In terms of the after vaccine, patches. A lot of people get patches after a vaccine, and that's generally brought on by stress to that kind of way. So either the body's under a bit of stress because of the vaccine, which is pretty normal, or the worry about it. Like I think that a lot of people were obviously worried about it, God love them, and built it up so much in their mind. Like I don't even know, I was so pro-vaccine, but the minute they put that in, I was like, sorry, I was blasting myself. I was like, God, is it, because it's a bit, you know, this crappy media we're getting into your head as well. And, you know, people's voices were getting louder. So I think that there was a lot of, you know, worry about it, you know, and the after effects of that. So then it's the nervous system whacking the immune system. The immune system goes off on one. So these are like sisters, right? So many systems in your body. Your nervous system is the thing that controls your emotions. It whacks the immune system. She goes off on one and starts going up and up and up and up. And somewhere along that little ladder is a little switch that's flicked, and that's an autoimmune response. And that's alopecia areata. That's different types of arthritis, you know, different types of asthma, all the stuff, all the autoimmune reactions out there. So that's what that is. And that's a stress trigger, you know, that will set that off, you know. So that's hard to control. So no shampoo is going to get that back. No vitamin is going to get that back. Okay. That's work that someone has to do internally as well, trying to deal. But while they're trying to work on lifestyle changes, which take a huge amount of time, or you're like, avoid stress. Like who can avoid stress?
Yeah, I know. You know, or else get some sleep. It's like, but I can't sleep.
Back off, yeah. So that takes time. So while you're trying to do those things, get yourself a nice shampoo. Feel like you're really, really trying to look after your scalp as much as possible. And that's something that dermatologists don't teach, you know, and it brings people, like the results that we have, you know, just from people really taking that time, that 5 minutes every night while they're brushing their teeth to start stamping their scalp, bring that blood flow up there, stick a scalp tonic on, like a nice nighttime tonic for your scalp, the exact same way you would treat your face, you know.
Does a scalp tonic make the hair greasy so you have to wash it out the next day, or no?
If they're water-based, no. They just, you know, and if you've nice clean scalp, it will the scalp will draw down those ingredients and products into the scalp quite quickly. You know, if you've got a lot of congestion on your scalp, like if you've got very oily scalp, dandruff, psoriasis, it's going to block it, so it will sit on top of the scalp and in the hair. So you have to get that scalp nice and clean and clear, and water-based tonics will just soak in, you know.
So you lost your hair, then decided to become a trichologist because of the great I suppose the great experience that you had with yours. And how is your business going? Is it going from strength to strength, or is it just yourself, or do you have a partner?
No, we have it's just myself that owns the business. There's 5 of us now that are working there, 4 full-time and then 1 part-time. I'm the kind of, I suppose, the main consultant. So like we would have, at the height of things, to get the business started, I was doing 20 online consultations a week. They're about 45 minutes each, so it was a lot, you know. And each person, it was their 45 minutes. So you had to be on the whole time. So it was very hard work, you know, very draining, I suppose. They're like, hi, Laura, you know, and then dump and then read the notes the next one. Hi, Laura. Like it was a lot, you know. So, but you have to get the business going and all that kind of stuff. So we did that. we sell like over 400 products on our website, you know, so huge education there. I believe that's a big thing, you know, and I think that there's not enough education out there about the scalp. Like nobody really looks after their scalp. We're spending all of our money on our faces and our skin, but then wonder why our hair thins over time, you know, with age, you know, so look after it as best you can. So putting the power into people's hands, I'm a big believer in that as well. The more information and the more you understand scientifically how to look after things, the more choice you have to, do I spend my money on a scalp tonic? Do I spend my money on the good shampoo? Should I be exfoliating my scalp? You know, so we're really education based, you know, putting the power in. On our Instagram, you know, you'll always find us on there trying to explain the nitty gritty to people, you know, because again, a lot of people think that's how you treat the hair. Picking up my hair again. That's how you treat the hair, is through the hair. It's not, it's through the scalp, you know, going really, really well. We've another consultant now, Sarah, who's brilliant, because I was really afraid to hand the reins over to anyone. Like, you know, it's your business, it's your message as well, you know, and every Trichology clinic or office or whatever will do things slightly differently, you know, and mine was all about, or Trua's was all about education and empathy and listening to people, you know, because a lot of people don't have that time with the doctor, you know, that kind of way. So it was hard to do that, but Sarah's flying, she's doing really, really well. But we pack all our own orders in our little office in Fairview. We send them out. We sell Dyson products now, which was really hard to get because Dyson are real picky about who sells their products. Okay. So we're doing really well. Yeah, really, really well. We do education.
Any kind of exciting things coming or anything new or just?
We've got our own products coming. Please God. So that's a process in itself. Like, you know what that's like, Laura. Like, it's very difficult.
Holy moly, it would put years on you.
Yeah, so we're kind of working
loads through it. But do you know what? I even think that if you had a handbook, if you wrote a handbook on how to do that, you still would miss things. Like, I think that every person and every business that starts out, you know, making something themselves or formulating developments on themselves has something extra to add to that handbook. So I think maybe you need to get like 10 different people in a room who did it and put it all together like that. Because even if someone asked me, how did you do it? I could tell them how I did it, and the pitfalls, but then, you know, they'd find their own pitfalls, because it's just, you're kind of stabbing in the dark, aren't you, really, with it?
Definitely.
So when are they all coming out? That's exciting.
I don't know. Hopefully before Christmas, we're thinking of, you know. So hopefully, yeah. So definitely just kind of a baseline of products that everyone needs in their routine. Like, I think that it's too difficult to become a Kerastase, right? Or it's too difficult to become a Kevin Murphy. Like, you know, that's not really the audience we have, or it's not really the message I want to send. You know, I do want to focus on scalp care, you know, that kind of way, and make sure that people understand why you would use a scalp tonic every night for the anti-aging benefits of it, or, you know, why you should detox your hair once a week, you know, because of all the minerals and shite that's in our hair, why you should exfoliate your scalp, you know. So all of those kind of the products that we're bringing out will mirror all of that, please God, you know. But we found a really good lab. Like, I'm thrilled with them. So hopefully the next couple of weeks now we'll sign all the bits off and off they go then. But it's like all my thousands of little babies. Like, it's incredible, isn't it? Like, it's such a great feeling, you know, that all of this came from, you know, me losing my hair 7 years ago. You know, it's a mad little world we live in.
Yeah, but I think that you'll always do something through your experience. It's like I brought mine out because I was seeing people in the pharmacy day after day, and they were coming in with the same issues, same problems. And I was sending them around to the health food shop with a list of things as long as their arm, because there was never a product that had all the ingredients that I knew would work in them. So then so it was through listening to people, and then, you know, experiencing that I developed my own. So I think that, like so I think that behind every, I suppose, is it entrepreneur a bit pretentious to call yourself that? But behind everyone that brings something new to the market or brings something different, there's a lived experience there as to why they've done it. Like, I mean, there has to be, doesn't there? Because you can see the gap, or you can see where, Christ, I could do something different here. So, and like you know, the way you, I suppose, were treated for your hair loss made you make the leap. So I think that, no, it is interesting. And
I think
the very best of luck with that. I can't wait to see it.
So exciting. But I think like that, like, it's really tough to, do all those things that we don't have experience in, right? So you're totally in panic mode going, how am I going to do this? Make so many mistakes along the way. But and you can't keep going at that pace unless you've passion about it, you can't keep failing unless you're like, no, I really want to do this. I really believe in it. You know what I mean? You can't do that if you don't care.
With your partner going, I promise I will come out of the office in 30 minutes. I promise and that 30 minutes gets extended. I'll come back from the lab in an hour. Yeah, no, it's mad. It is. And like, I suppose my family live and breathe it now, as I'm sure yours do too. But it's just
so involved.
Process,
but even like the people that work with us, like, Connor's my brother, Mark is my brother-in-law, Amy's a great friend of mine, you know what I mean? So it's a very much kind of a family affair. And I remember one of the things, like in all the business books, they'll tell you, don't employ family and friends. I'm like, geez, like you need them, like you need trust, you need your little tribe, you need people that are going to go the extra mile because they believe in it. And it's something that affected their lives as well. They saw how much it affected me, my hair loss, so they know how important it is to other families out there, because hair loss, it seems very cosmetic or it seems very vain, and it's
absolutely not. It's not psychological. And actually I had a male doctor on who was talking about male pattern baldness, and men going to Turkey to get their hair transplants or here in Ireland as well, and they're seen as vain. But he was saying absolutely isn't. The psychological impact of a young lad losing his hair when it can be huge for some men.
Huge,
so no, absolutely. I wouldn't just see it as cosmetic.
Yeah. And
although our hair, like, we only really appreciate it when it's falling out, don't we?
Oh, I never thought I hid behind it, or it was my part of my personality until staring back in the mirror was little Phil Mitchell in front of me. You know what I mean? Had no fucking hair. I was like, geez, I liked that. Shame about that. You know what I mean? Like, it was like, it's a big thing and it changes your appearance. And no matter if that's, a broken bone, a burn, like anything that physically changes you isn't a vain. It has huge emotional effects. Like I wouldn't have any of the issues that I have today, probably if my hair hadn't have fallen out. So it makes a big impact. Like one of the first things somebody says to me, if they've struggled with hair loss for years, I'll know they're about to cry and I'll actually make them cry, right? I'll ask a question and they'll burst out crying, and they just, the relief almost of, I'm just going to get, sorry, Claire. I'm like, keep going, just get it out. Come on, get out. And I'll keep rabbiting on for a few minutes to kind of distract them. And then after that, they're like, oh my God, sorry, I just haven't told anyone how much that affected me before.
Yeah.
I'm like, I know. Because you hide it. Because when you lose your hair, people say things to you like, could be worse. You could be sick. It's true. But that compounds that level of shame and guilt again and embarrassment again. Going, God, I can't give out about this because Laura, God, did you hear about Laura? This is just hair. Like, I'm so vain. I'm so silly. And you're constantly speaking to yourself in a really derogatory way. That has huge implications on people's lives. They don't go for that promotion. They don't go on that date. They don't want to go to their kids' graduation, whatever that is. Like, and I try and say, don't let this now stop you in life. Don't. And it stops millions of people, not just women, men as well. And I was even talking to the taxi driver on the way over here, and I told him what I did. I said, I think it's as bad for men. I don't know if you agree with me, Claire. And I was like, I do actually. I said, emotionally for that person, it's as hard as it happens, but society accept a bald man more. So it's easier for them to exist in the world. But personally, it's still as hard. Of course it is, it's really, really difficult, Yeah,
and it's coming to terms with getting older.
Yeah.
Claire, at the end of every podcast, I ask.
Yeah.
2 questions.
Forgot about this one. Okay.
You better have done your swan. So, would you have any advice for young people today? And in Claire Balding's, or is it Claire Balding or Claire Fullam that's going to say,
whatever,
what is the meaning of life?
God. What's the meaning of life? I think definitely finding a passion in life, right? And that's really easy to say. Do you like knitting? Well, knit for a living, right? Yeah. Are you good at colouring? Right, saying to a 5-year-old, right? But to find a purpose and a passion in life, I think is an absolute gift. And it doesn't mean the same thing for everybody. Of course it doesn't. My passion or, purpose could have been being a mother, or it could have been really career driven, whatever that was, But finding, it's an absolute fucking miracle that we're here. So enjoy yourself while you're here, but surround that with richness in terms of what makes you happy, what makes you fulfilled, what gets you up in the morning. So try in this mad world and busy, chaotic world that we live in, try and find that bit of purpose, that bit of reason why you're here. Because like me, you know, I wouldn't be talking to you here if my hair hadn't fallen out. You know, at the time it was the worst thing that ever happened to me, but you have to build up from that again, you know, and great things come from pain, you know, that kind of way, amazing things come from pain. So try in the chaotic world to find that purpose, to understand why you're here a little bit, you know, that kind of way, and run with that as much as you can. Yeah.
That's lovely.
Thanks.
And what advice would you have for young people today?
I think it's hard, right? Because like every generation changes, you know? Do you know what I saw on Instagram the other day? It was like, I don't care about grey hairs or wrinkles. Let me do. I don't care about grey hairs or wrinkles. I want the grace to understand the next generation, you know? So for me to answer that is hard because I don't really want to tell them what to do. You know, it's their time to shine, you know? I suppose, you know, do things because they matter, you know? Do things because they're going to help somebody else. You're not number one all the time, you know, and you'll never really be. And to live like that, to give back to others is really, really important, and have that kind of empathy and integrity that will make you a better person when you're a bit like that, you know? So I'm not going to tell them what to do because it's different for all generations. But I think that if we lead with that, to care about people, to be there for someone, to be the friend, you know, that will say, yeah, all right, Laura, like lead your life like that. You'll have a really rich life. I hope.
Claire, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Are we finished already? I feel like I only started. I could sit here all day.